guys, Dave Lee coming at you once again from Down Under with another movie review. Today we'll be taking a look at the latest release from Studio Canal, the sequel to the 2014 smash hit, based on the characters and stories written and created by Michael Bond. Following our favourite little Peruvian British bear, it is of course Paddington 2. Paddington 2 picks up a little while after the first movie, and Paddington is now well and truly settled with the Brown family in London. It's soon coming up Paddington's Aunt Lucy's 100th birthday, and he takes himself out on an adventure to find her the perfect birthday present. While on Portobello Road, Paddington happens across a vintage pop-up book in Mr. Gruber's antique shop, and sets out to find a series of jobs to save the money to buy it for Aunt Lucy. Unbeknownst to Paddington, this book holds a secret, one that is of large value to a thief who steals the book when Paddington naively reveals its location. Paddington and the Browns are then set on an adventure to retrieve the book from the thief, so Aunt Lucy can have her perfect present. I have been an enormous fan of Paddington Bear for as long as I can remember. He was one of the very first characters that I first fell in love with as a kid. I mean, I love this guy so much that when I first visited London in 2015, the only thing that I had on my to-buy list was one of those real, authentic British Paddington Bears that I always wanted as a kid. So how could I review this movie today without having this little guy join me along for the ride? Watching this movie as an adult, however, throwing away the nostalgia goggles, how does this little character and his journey hold up in the modern age? So from the very top, I must say that there's not a lot of adult humour in this movie, as a lot of kids' movies tend to have these days. Look, this may bother some adults who take their kids to the cinema and maybe want like a little bit of a distraction away from this kids' movie, but for me, I actually found it really quite refreshing. There is an enormous charm in the innocence of this movie that makes it plain and simply for the kids. It is so daringly a kids' movie that it doesn't need to rely on risque humour or innuendos to captivate its audience, young or old. In a way, it is actually quite reminiscent of some of the early family entertainment produced by Walt Disney in the 1960s. And this is such a wonderful movie that I feel like this is one of the most light-hearted and optimistic and once again charming and innocent pieces of family fare that I have seen for a very, very long time. The humour in this movie is absolutely fantastic. I mean, this movie almost plays out like a music hall show. Think of maybe even something like Mr. Bean, but where a little bear is taking centre stage. The humour in this movie is so incredibly British, I absolutely loved it. I also love the adventure and crime aspect of this movie. So many kids' movies have tried to parody those classic British crime capers of the 1960s and 1970s, even 2014's Muppets Most Wanted, but I don't feel like any of them have really succeeded as well as Paddington 2. This movie, to me, didn't just feel like another parody. It felt like this could almost belong alongside the long line of great British crime capers like The Italian Job or Gambit, and even some of the greatest James Bond movies. Paddington isn't just a parody, but it feels like a love letter to the genre. I mean, like, I wouldn't even be mad if they decided to make a James Bond Paddington crossover movie. That would be awesome. Make it happen. Do it! One thing that this movie does offer to the adults though, however, is the massive roll call of British talent that either star in or cameo in this movie. Names like Ben Whishaw, Hugh Bonneville, Sally Hawkins, Julie Walters, Peter Capaldi, Jim Broadbent, Brendan Gleeson, and even Hugh Grant. These guys are all front and centre of this movie, and there is a plethora of other British talent making small cameos in this movie, and every single person in this movie delivers such a delightful performance. Brendan Gleeson was an enormous standout to me. He brings something to this role that I don't think I've ever seen him bring to a role before. His hard-as-nails exterior that we've all come to know and love is gradually ground down in this movie to this light-hearted, amusing character, and it makes me want to see Brendan Gleeson in more family movies. Someone please make this happen. And Hugh Grant, who is a personal favourite of mine, delivers a performance that is so whimsical, so eccentric and so self-deprecating that I feel like this is the best performance he has delivered for a very long time. Hugh Grant, who was, I suppose, known as a little bit of a pompous prat earlier in his career, is here for one reason and one reason only, and that is to embrace that pomp and just absolutely take the mickey out of himself. It's quite clear here that Hugh Grant is playing this incredibly over-the-top, sort of out-of-world version of himself, and it is absolutely fantastic. His performance is so bravely self-aware that I feel like I like him even more after having seen it, and I didn't even know if that was possible because I love Hugh Grant. His movies are fantastic. But of course, Paddington is who we are all here to see, and this fluffy little bear is even more charming than ever before. Ben Whishaw delivers such an enchanting and charismatic vocal performance, and the work done by the visual effects team on this little bear has to be amongst some of the greatest character animation I have ever seen in a kids' movie. The love and care put into every aspect of this movie is incredibly admirable. One of my favourite parts in the film, in fact, is when Paddington first comes across the pop-up book and imagines himself and his Aunt Lucy within its pages. This simple yet effective and loving callback to the style of the original TV series was enough to send a wave of nostalgia over me. Paddington is one of the most optimistic and innocent characters I have ever had the pleasure of seeing on the screen, and I am so glad that the writing and production teams continue to do justice to this childhood favourite character of mine and so many other people around the world. My love for this little bear has just continued to grow, and I really do welcome more installments in this franchise. If I had maybe one small little qualm with this movie, it would probably be that at just over 100 minutes, maybe this movie was just a touch too long for a kids movie, and you can always tell when the kids in the theatre are getting a little bit restless because they start making noise, they start running around the place. I feel like maybe the kids started to get just a touch restless after about 60 minutes, so maybe the length of this movie could have been maybe even 20 minutes shorter, and it would have just been absolutely perfect. But I look, honestly, I don't feel like that this is to the detriment of the film, and it's certainly not something that's going to stop me revisiting this movie again in the future. So all in all, how does Paddington 2 stack up against the first movie in the franchise? I feel like this movie stands on its own very well. In fact, I didn't even have to go back and revisit the first one to feel like I was completely immersed in the second one. You could go and see this without having to see the first one. It's probably a good idea that you do see the first one before seeing this, but it's not an absolute necessity. This movie stands out so well on its own that it even stands up to the first movie, and perhaps it might even better it. I think this movie has actually made more of an impact on me than the first one did. So that being said, I would give Paddington an easy 4.5 marmalade pots out of 5. No, Paddington, you can't have that marmalade until after the review's finished. I told you about this. Sneaky little bear. This is, once again, a charming, optimistic, and incredibly innocent movie that I feel like everyone just really needs to go and see. I feel like that anyone who does go out and see this movie will find a greater happiness in themselves and in the world, and even be inspired to go out and do great things. All by this little bear with his little red hat, his blue duffel coat, and his pair of red Wellingtons. I love you, Paddington. Thank you so much to my wonderful new friends over at Studio Canal who provided me with passes to check this movie out at the Melbourne premiere. I had such a wonderful morning seeing this movie. If you're a first time viewer of my channel and you've liked this review and you'd like to see some more, then please, after the jump at the end of the video, give me some support and hit that big old subscribe button. Bam, just like that. That's right, Paddington, you show them how to do it. To all my regular viewers, thank you once again for joining me. To absolutely everybody out there, don't forget to hit that like button down below. That does a great deal at getting these videos out there, and I hope I will see you guys again soon. Until next time though, guys, take care, and I hope you have a wonderful day.